All right. So, welcome to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast. We're going to get into the show pretty quickly here, but what I wanted to talk quickly about before we did, as always, guys, if you've been here before, you know the deal. You know what this show's all about. You know why we're here. The goal of the show is to help athletes reach new levels in their athletic careers, help athletes improve in those little areas that are going to help them level up and help them in turn create the athletic career that they're after. Now, the way that we go about that is we talk about so much more than just training on this show. And this has been a huge theme, not just for the podcast, but for me this week as well. I've had a lot of athletes that are dealing with personal things, dealing with, mindset issues, struggles outside of the sport itself. And guys, that's something that your coaches need to be addressing. If you're working with a strength coach and they're just throwing a workout at you and making you sweat, you're not getting what you need from that strength coach because, yes, you're a high-level athlete, but you're a fucking human being. And I don't know why so many people struggle to understand that. But today we're going to be talking about how not all training camps are created equal. And so just to sum it up quickly before we get into the show, when I say that, what I mean is that every single training camp you do should be different. Now, don't get me wrong, there should be a lot of similarities, but they should be different because every different athlete has different needs. And if those needs aren't being addressed properly, you're not going to set yourself up for success in the fight, which ultimately is the goal of training camp. So let's get into it. We're going to go now in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the number one show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I'm your host, Kenny Dusseault, and today we are going to be talking about how not every training camp is created equally. Now, what do I mean when I say that? So what I mean when I'm saying that not every training camp is created equally is that, guys, every camp you do as an athlete should be different. I speak to a lot of athletes who say that, their training just looks the same all the time, especially from a strength and conditioning standpoint. As an unfortunate example, like I've spoken to athletes where it's something along the lines of this. Well, on Monday I hit legs, and on Tuesday I hit chest, on Wednesday I hit chest and back, and on Friday I hit shoulders and core. And so something like that, first of all, if you're hitting a push-pull leg split as an athlete other than a bodybuilder, you've got a whole host of other problems. But on top of that, guys, your strength and conditioning needs to adapt as you change as an athlete. That's what I mean when I say not every training camp is created equal. Now, don't get me wrong, there should be some similarities, but a problem I see quite often within the strength and conditioning industry is that coaches just run off of templates. This is our fight prep, so this is exactly what we do every single time we prep any athlete for any fight. And don't get me wrong, I'll be straight up with you. I have templates that I use, but I change them based off of the athlete. So I start off with a template program because I know when we're 8 weeks out from a fight, the basics of what we should be doing 8 weeks out from a fight. However, where the magic happens and where the key comes in is varying that up based off of different athletes. Why? Because yes, if you just throw one program at a bunch of athletes, the chances are a bunch of them are going to get decent results from that program if you know what you're doing. However, the goal isn't to get them decent results. The goal is to change the fucking trajectory of their career. And you don't do that by throwing a workout at them and hoping that they work hard at it. That's just not how it works. No athlete I've ever worked with gets supreme results off of one template program. So the reason that you need to be switching programs up and doing different things is because, plain and simple, guys, all athletes are different. All athletes are different, and as a result, all athletes need different things. Now, going into that more, all athletes are different, and all athletes need different things. So what you need to be doing as a strength coach is addressing all of those things. If you have a template program that you use, and you're not changing it because, I worked with one athlete, we did this, and it worked well. Well, then what if you get an athlete that's new to strength and conditioning? They haven't really lifted weights before. What if you get an athlete that has a specific struggle that they're dealing with? well, overall, I'm really strong and powerful, but my gas tank to go 3 to 5 hard rounds is where I'm really lacking. Well, are you addressing that issue, or are you just saying, well, this is how we do our programs and throwing program at them? What if you've got an athlete that's coming off of a long layoff or coming off of an injury? All of these things are things you need to consider. Because if you're not addressing those things, like if I have an athlete come in that's coming off of a shoulder injury, then you best believe a big part of their program is going to be bulletproofing the shoulders so that we're building strength in that joint that they've had issues with. And in turn, we're fixing the problem that they've been having. Because the goal of training for sport, the goal of the strength and conditioning work we do is to set them up for success in the fight. And that's going to be different based off of different athletes. So like I said, as we started out, yes, I have template programs that I start with. However, every athlete, based off of the conversations we're having every week, based off of, things that pop up during camp, is going to receive different work. And that's another thing that I wanted to make sure I mentioned. Things that pop up during camp. If you're an athlete listening to this, I'm sure you've been partway through your program and then, something came up and you had to be away from the gym for a week. Did the program reflect those changes, or did they just say, okay, pick up where you left off? Like, you need to be adjusting based off of any of those issues. Now, I'm going to talk through a story of an athlete that's been working with me for a while now. But the first time that he came to me, he was about 5 weeks out from a fight. He'd never really lifted weights consistently before. He'd been in the gym, but kind of done it a little bit, been off of it a little bit, done it a little bit, been off of it a little bit. And he had issues with his gas tank in his previous fights. He'd been winning, and then he would fade while his opponent picked up, and he'd end up losing the fight. And so when he came to me, I'm not going to throw a guy who's never lifted weights into a full-on fight camp program, because you need to build that solid foundation, and success in the sport is going to come from having that solid foundation. So what we did is we kept almost an off-camp focus, almost of what I would do with, an athlete walking in the door for the first time that didn't have anything booked. Now, we made some changes because, yes, he still had a fight coming up and we wanted to make sure we were fully ready for that. But the majority of that first 5 weeks was focused on creating the strength foundation. Scott also had some issues with his shoulder that he'd been dealing with. And so when he came in, we wanted to make sure that we were addressing that efficiently. Now, when I say addressing that efficiently, obviously with every injury, it's going to be a little bit different, but we've spent a little bit of extra time working specifically on building up his shoulders because he had issues with those in the past. And then when it came to actually the full strength and conditioning program, we made sure that we focused on things that were going to have the biggest effect. Because so many coaches are so stuck in the idea that, we're 4 weeks out, and 4 weeks out, we have to do this, that they're missing out on giving athletes the best possible results. Because this guy, as an example, was 5 weeks out, but he didn't have a strong foundation. He didn't have a strong structure in his body that was going to allow him to fight at a high level for 3 rounds. So instead of focusing on peaking for the fight based off of no proper foundation, I sat him down and I explained, because you haven't done strength and conditioning properly to this point, what we need to do is we need to start you from the basics. But by building up the basics, by building up the strength through your posterior chain, building up your postural strength with a lot of upper back work, rows, pull downs, things like that, building up your aerobic base with, bike interval sessions, similar to what I do usually in the off season, this is the effect that's going to have. As your body gets stronger, you're going to use less energy with all of your movements. As you use less energy with all of your movements, what starts to happen is you start to move easier, you start to move a little faster. And then in the last couple of weeks, we're going to start putting a little bit more explosive power and repeatability work in there to take that foundation we've built and then peak you a little bit for the fight. And I explained to him, this isn't traditionally what I would do with an athlete that's 5 weeks out. But if I try to do that, that would be like trying to fill up a water bottle that has a hole in the bottom. If he doesn't have that foundation built, me building everything on top of the foundation isn't going to actually lead him to be successful in the fight. And sure enough, We did that for 5 weeks. We built that program, a little bit of a hybrid off-season in-camp program. And in turn, he walked into that octagon, walked his opponent down for a round and about 2 minutes before putting him away. So, guys, what I want you to take away from this is that as a strength and conditioning coach, you need to be adaptable. And if you're an athlete listening to this, ask yourself if your coach is adapting to your needs. Ask yourself if you're getting what you actually need from the strength and conditioning work you're doing, or if it's just them throwing a program at you and saying, good luck. And on that note as well, I want to make sure I touch on this. On that note as well, if that is what you're feeling, communicate that. Talk to your coach and say, hey, I'm struggling with these areas and I don't feel like it's really being addressed. And your coach is going to do one of two things. Either they're going to hopefully explain to you why you're doing what you're doing and how it's actually the right thing for you to do, or they're going to make some changes, help you out, and actually put the program pushing in the right direction. Or option 3 is this isn't the right fucking person for you. Because as a strength and conditioning coach, my goal is that every athlete I work with succeeds beyond their wildest expectations. And in order to do that, we need to communicate. They need to be talking to me, telling me how training's going, telling me how their body's feeling, telling me what's going well and what's not, if anything they're doing is causing pain. And then I need to be adaptable and be able to fix the program based off of the needs that they present. And this is what you need as an athlete as well. Just because you worked hard, it does not mean it was a good training session. You need to understand what it's actually focused on, how it's actually helping you, and then how it's progressing as you move closer and closer to competition. If you don't understand that, that's a problem. That is something you need to fix. Because if you can't fix that, then you're going to continue to train at about 50, 60% of what you could be or what you could do. And that might be okay right now. You might continue to move up the ranks, but you're going to hit a point where someone's got the skills that you've got, but they've got better training behind them. And in turn, they're going to dominate you when that day comes. So let this be your wake-up call. That if you feel like you're just getting some random bullshit program thrown at you and told to, grind harder and, being shit-talked if you're not working as hard as people want you to work or whatever it is, and you don't feel like your needs are being addressed, you need to communicate that. And if you communicate that and the coach responds poorly, get the fuck out of that program. Because if you can't communicate with your coach about issues that you're having or things that you're struggling with, it's the wrong fucking program. That's the wrong fucking coach. I hope this was valuable. I hope you got something out of this. The main keys that I want you guys to take away, like I said, was as a strength coach, be adaptable. As an athlete, be confident enough to step up and tell your coaches what you need in order to make sure that you're getting it. This is your career. You need to be getting the highest level service that you can get. And if you don't feel like you're getting that, make sure you're communicating it. And if you communicate it and you don't see any changes, get the fuck out and find something better. So I appreciate all of you for tuning in. My one ask, as always, is that you share the show. If you've gotten some value from something I said today, share it with a friend, share it with a teammate, share it with a coach, share it with someone you know is going to need to hear this message. So I appreciate you. I hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll talk again soon.